Good evening, you're watching Brass Tacks. I'm Zakir Jacob. India's AI moment is here and the world is not just witnessing it, it's cheering for India to go up the AI ladder. So tech bigwigs, global leaders, big AI magnates around the world have all been thronging to Delhi for the last few days. And in fact, today was the big AI summit, the AI Impact Summit hosted by New Delhi. It was not just symbolism, but it was actual strategy. It was actual strategy of how India becomes a global AI superpower playing out in real time. There was soft power meeting, hard tech. The summit was also a show of strength for the world's most powerful AI executives, from Sam Altman to Dario Amodei to Alexander Wong, all under one roof. The biggest of biggest CEOs in the AI space, from OpenAI to Cloud and Anthropic, to Meta AI, they were all there at the Bharat Mandapam today. So India has positioned itself not just as a market, but an active shaper of AI governance. That was Prime Minister Modi's message today at the summit, that India will be an active participant in shaping AI for the future. Let's listen in to a series of reactions that have come in from the India AI Impact Summit, and then we'll open this up to our guests.
आज न्यू दिल्ली एआई इम्पैक्ट समिट में मैं एआई के लिए MANAV मानव विजन प्रस्तुत करता हूं। मानव का अर्थ होता है ह्यूमन, और मानव विजन कहता है M मोरल एंड एथिकल सिस्टम्स, यानी एआई एथिकल गाइडेंस पर आधारित हो। डीप फेक्स और फैब्रिकेटेड कंटेंट ओपन सोसाइटीज में अस्थिरता ला रहे हैं। डिजिटल वर्ल्ड में कंटेंट पर भी ऑथेंटिसिटी लेवल्स होने चाहिए, ताकि लोगों को पता हो कि क्या असली है और क्या एआई से बनाया गया है। सबसे सशक्त उदाहरण है न्यूक्लियर पावर। हमने उसका डिस्ट्रक्शन भी देखा है और सकारात्मक कंट्रीब्यूशन भी देखा है। एआई भी एक ट्रांसफॉर्मेटिव पावर है। दिशाहीन हुई तो डिसरप्शन, सही दिशा मिली तो सॉल्यूशन।
The India AI Impact Summit served as a platform for major announcements, both from government and from industry leaders, to strengthen India's digital and AI ecosystem. Now, the government has invested 10,000 crores to build a comprehensive AI ecosystem under the India AI mission. Prime Minister Modi today unveiled, and you heard that soundbite a moment ago, he's calling it the Manav Framework, which stands for moral, accountable, national, sovereignty, accessible, and valid, to guide human-centric AI development. The New Delhi Frontier AI Impact Commitments is an initiative involving global and domestic innovations that are aimed at advancing multilingual AI and evaluating the impact of India's own developed large language models. Bharat Vistar is a new multilingual AI platform that's proposed for agriculture to integrate with the agri-stack and provide localized advisories to farmers. In fact, Reliance Industries Chairman Mukesh Ambani announced a massive 10 lakh crore investment in AI over the next 7 years. And Microsoft has announced another $50 billion investment for the Global South, identifying India as a priority market for AI, infrastructure, cloud, and skilling. Now, from a Chai Pe Charcha in Jaipur to the global AI stage in New Delhi, French President Emmanuel Macron turned a personal diplomatic anecdote with Narendra Modi into a headline at the AI summit. He hailed India's digital public infrastructure, particularly UPI, as something that no other country has built at this scale.
10 years ago, a street vendor in Mumbai could not open a bank account. No address, no papers, no access. And today, the same vendor accepts payments on his phone, instantly. Instantly, for free, from anyone in the country. And India built something that no other country in the world has built, a digital identity for 1.4 billion people.
I want to go across to a special guest who's joining us. Professor Steve Hanke is an economist and professor of applied economics at the Johns Hopkins University. Thank you very much, Professor Hanke, for joining us. You had, I think, tweeted about this either yesterday or the day before. You said that India will push its Global AI Commons initiative at the India AI Impact Summit. What does AI mean for a country like India? It's a representative of the global south. It's a developing country. Because so far, what we've seen in the AI world is two models. You have the American big tech, big capital model, and you have the Chinese state-led closed model. Can India offer a third alternative?
I think that's what they're trying to do. And the meeting is, I think, important not only substantively, but kind of symbolically, in the sense that in the global south, who's leading the charge? India. So from that point of view, it is important. Now, let me just make one comment. I don't want to rain on this parade because it looked like it was a pretty big parade down there. But my own view is I'm in the camp of one of the pioneers of AI, the Frenchman Yann LeCun. Mm-hmm. And LeCun, here's what LeCun said when he departed Meta, by the way, and I'm quoting here. He said, "We're easily fooled into thinking that large language models are intelligent because of their fluency with language. But really, their understanding of reality is very superficial." So I think putting that quote into context, because he is one of the masters and one of the originators of the whole AI thing, going way back, by the way, to the 1970s with LeCun. I would say, in general, this is all overhyped and potentially dangerous.
But
so
it's
again, I don't want to rain on the parade. They put on a great show down in the subcontinent clearly today, but I'm a little bit skeptical and more cautious.
But tell me this: in the last few years, and certainly in the last few months, isn't AI, various models, whether it's OpenAI or Anthropic and cloud, showing that many tasks can be done by AI, perhaps even in a superior fashion to human beings? I mean, I genuinely am scared whether the profile of my job as a news anchor will survive the next 4 or 5 years. And frankly, I guess the same would apply for economists.
Well, again, I put a lot of this in the overhype category. If you look at what the Silicon Valley, or what I call Silly Valley, says about productivity increases in the United States, for example, and what it's going to do to potential GDP growth. The potential GDP growth in the U.S. is about 2.4% per year in real growth. And if you listen to the Silicon Valley people, they say, oh, we're going to go up to 6%. There's just no way. This is all hype. So it will change the structure of some types of jobs and employment. And I don't think there's anybody that's going to knock you out of the saddle, because what's going on now, I'm saying something, you're reacting to it. I'm having trouble getting my head around how AI is going to eliminate you. Maybe it would eliminate you, but the program would be pretty boring and there would be very few listeners. So in that sense, it probably won't.
But what about, one of the concerns here in India, and this debate has been sparked during the course of this India AI Summit week as well, is that one of the big successful India stories in the last 20, 30 years has been around IT and IT-enabled services. There are very big firms here in India. A lot of them do work for American clients. And now you're seeing, whether it's the NASDAQ there in the US or even the tech stocks here in India, have been sort of taking a bit of a beating. What do you attribute that to? Is it that software engineers will become redundant? Or do you think it's because the valuations of AI have gone far ahead than the actual capability, and perhaps the market is now correcting?
Well, the big thing with the market is that to get a value of something, you have to be discounting future profits and free cash flows. But most of these operations are not generating any income whatsoever, no income, and obviously no profits if you don't have any income. So I think what's going on is that you're getting a lot of huge amounts of money flowing into this. I had one of my recent students, by the way, a recipient of a bachelor's degree at the Johns Hopkins University. He's out in Silicon Valley. He just raised $250 million.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what's going on now. I'm not going to talk about his operation specifically, but I think what will happen, in fact, you have a tremendous overhype and over allocation of capital going into the sector. Many new startups. Most of those startups will fail immediately, and you'll have ultimately a consolidation where the big firms are left standing, and most of these startups will fail. So it will be what happened. You'll have things like Google, Meta, Microsoft, and so forth, so on. So that's probably how it will eventually shake out and evolve. And I see a shakeout occurring right now. The big problem with India, let's go back to India. The big problem with India, by the way, is you have to put things into context, because you're putting the IT, the kind of Silicon Valley spin on India. Let me rain on that parade. The number of Indians who are emigrating from India has skyrocketed. It's almost 700 million Indians a year, or 700,000, excuse me, 700,000 Indians per year are emigrating because of what? There aren't opportunities in India. And 10 years ago, there were only about 325,000 Indians emigrating every year. So this you have to put things into context. I think the big thing for India, by the way, is not AI. The big thing in India would be to liberalize the economy, and get rid of the license draw, get rid of the red tape. Any foreigner knows that it's almost impossible to do business in India. And the foreign direct investment that Modi was talking about, by the way, in that speech, it's not coming in. There's almost no foreign direct investment coming into India. It's way behind China, way behind Vietnam, way behind many of your other neighbors. So the FDI, why doesn't it come into India? It's the Indian red tape.
Okay, Professor, I think they're trying to address some of that. Let's see how successful or otherwise they will be in addressing that red tape that you talk about. Thank you very much for joining us, Professor Steve Hanke from the Johns Hopkins University School of Applied Economics, giving us his thoughts on AI. Certainly, there is a case to be made that, at least as far as the market valuation is concerned, has it paced ahead of the actual capacity of AI to transform your world and your daily life. As much as it is about the tech world, as it were. But does India's growing activity across the AI value chain, is it going to be a model for the world, or is it still going to be dominated by the big tech American technology companies, from infrastructure to application? How is India setting itself apart from the other big AI players? OpenAI CEO Sam Altman spoke exclusively in a global exclusive to CNBC TV 18's managing editor, Shireen Bhan.
Hello and welcome to the CNBC TV 18 exclusive. I'm Shireen Bhan, and we've got probably one of the biggest headliners here at the India AI Impact Summit, OpenAI Sam Altman. Sam, great to have you join us on CNBC TV 18. It's wonderful to see you here back in India. You were sharing the stage with the Prime Minister just a few moments ago, talking about how important India is. But how significant is India for OpenAI specifically? It is your second largest market today.
It is our second largest market, and the energy here that what people are building with the technology is just amazing to watch. We have more than 100 million weekly active users of ChatGPT. This is the fastest growing market for codecs. And it's amazing to see the energy here. Every time I come, it feels like it's gone up another level.
You know, Sam, you've also shared the stage with Pratyush Kumar of Sarvam. The last time you were here, there were questions being asked on whether India can do an LLM. Have you had a look at what Sarvam has been able to put out?
India's, yes, but more generally, India is just building incredible AI, the entire AI stack, from like data centers to models to applications, and I think there's no country in the world quite matches India for total AI energy.
Sam, can you give me a sense of what we can expect now from OpenAI for India? How much can you customize OpenAI and ChatGPT for India? What should we expect?
The number one request we get is better support of local languages and dialects, which is something we're hard at work on, and we're open to taking any other requests if you have some.
Is that something they're going to double down on?
Yeah, we're hard at work on that already now.
Okay. You've just announced a partnership with TCS, and
Yes.
of course, you're going to be one of the first clients as far as TCS's data center is concerned. What do you envisage as far as that relationship and that partnership is concerned? And do you believe you're likely to ink more partnerships here in India, especially on the enterprise side?
Totally. Hard to overstate, as I mentioned earlier, how much energy there is for building AI and building with AI in India. And I think you should expect to see more partnerships and much more world in all of these amazing ways.
You know, you talked about democratizing AI. You also talked about AI and the need for regulation, or at least a watchdog akin to the nuclear watchdog. You talked about the IEA. That's an interesting comparison, an interesting analogy that you made.
Well, I think all historical analogies are imperfect because every technology is new, every moment is new. But the thing that I like about the nuclear analogy is it was something that the world really did come together on, even countries that normally don't like each other very much, and figured out how we could address the serious concerns of misuse of the technology, but also figuring out how to share the benefits and get nuclear energy out into the world. So IEA has been imperfect. Nuclear technology is an imperfect analogy for AI, but it was a moment of real global cooperation.
Well, you know, you're expecting countries to cooperate, but companies are unwilling to cooperate at this point in time. It's a war out there in the valley, isn't it?
In some ways, yes, but around AI safety and AI alignment, I find the companies to be pretty collaborative. Mm-hmm. Same way for countries. I think countries will economically compete, but when it comes to safety and stability, I expect they'll collaborate.
You know, those are big issues, but the number one issue being asked of leaders like you, how sustainable is this business model? The gargantuan spends that companies like yours are making, is it code red at this point in time?
I think, I may be wrong, but if AI stays on the trajectory that it appears to be on, I think we will say, man, we wish that people had invested more earlier and built out more infrastructure earlier. Clearly, the industry is making a very big bet, but when we look at the economic utility of these models, as these models start to be able to create such value on their own, we are again kind of running out of capacity, and I expect that to happen many more quarters into the future.
But what kind of investments do you believe are going to require? You're saying that this is not enough. What we're already seeing is not enough, and that's trillions of dollars being poured in at this point in time.
In some markets you can say what's the total market, what would be enough? And then there's some other markets where demand is very correlated to price. If we can make intelligence very cheap and very abundant, I think there will be huge amounts of demand. If intelligence is limited and very expensive, there will be less demand. So I think you can talk about how much would be enough at a certain level of capability relative to a certain price, but in the abstract sense, it's hard. On this mission of democratizing AI, that's part of why we think we need to invest so much, and we need to make AI so inexpensive, so abundant, so good, such that people can use a ton of it for whatever they'd like.
But what is it going to eventually mean as far as your own bottom line is concerned and monetization? I mean, you've brought in ChatGPT ads with the purpose of being able to monetize and make the business model more sustainable. I know you had a comment to make on the ads that Anthropic put out, calling them crazy dystopic, but that is a fear that people have with what OpenAI can potentially do on that front.
Yeah, there's two parts of the question. There's sort of ads and then business models. I'll do ads first. I think if we were doing what those ads said of, having the AI response and give you a different piece of advice based off of who was paying, that would feel really bad. So our first principle of ads is we won't do that. But like a lot of most of the rest of the consumer internet, I think ads in a certain way, in a certain place can make sense as a model and helps democratize it to people that otherwise wouldn't pay for the subscription but still want to use a lot of AI. On the business model question more broadly, I think we're really starting to see enterprises realize how much they should be willing to pay for AI agents that can help do part of their workload. And my sense is we will see phenomenally huge growth there pretty quickly.
So do you feel comfortable where you find yourself financially today?
I wish we had more compute. But yes, I feel...
Will you have more compute, and what's the latest as far as the deal with NVIDIA is concerned?
We are building compute as fast as we can. Yes, we'll have more compute over time, for sure.
OpenClaw and the pivot towards more agentic future for you specifically, are we likely to, A, how do you use that? B, are we likely to see more acqui-hires from you?
So the models are getting good enough. We still have a lot of issues around safety and sort of security to solve with an OpenClaw-like approach, but I think OpenClaw is the most exciting thing to happen in the AI space in quite some time. And this vision of the models getting good enough that you can have a local agent running for you on your computer or a different computer and do all of these amazing things is really quite remarkable. It feels to me like one of these moments where we unequivocally get to see the future. In terms of will we do more deals like that? Yeah, probably. I mean, not a lot, but I would expect there'd be some more in our future.
All right, let's also bring you up to speed with what Indian companies are talking about as far as artificial intelligence is concerned, because as India is taking a giant leap in AI, Mukesh Ambani, the chairperson of Reliance Industries, has announced a massive 10 lakh crore investment over the next 7 years to enhance AI capabilities. Speaking at the AI summit, Mukesh Ambani said that the investment aims to reduce the cost of AI tools, similar to how Jio made mobile data affordable to Indians. He also highlighted that just as Jio connected India to the internet, it will now connect the country to the intelligence era, delivering AI-powered services to citizens, businesses, and the government sector.
I would like to announce that Jio will play an even bigger role in India's AI transformation. Jio connected India to the internet era. Jio will now connect India to the intelligence era. We will reduce the cost of intelligence as dramatically as we did the cost of data. Jio, together with Reliance, will invest 10 lakh crores over the next 7 years, starting this year. This is patient, disciplined, nation-building capital designed to create durable economic value and strategic resilience for decades to come.
Let's shift focus now to some political stories. And in Kerala, a decision by the LDF government to extend bar operating hours across the state up until midnight, that has now triggered a major political storm. The opposition and influential church bodies are accusing the LDF government of pushing a booze bribe ahead of the elections. Under the new order by the state government, bars, beer and wine parlors can now operate from 10 a.m. to 12 midnight. So that's 2 hours at both ends. Earlier, they used to function from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. So they've added 1 hour at closing and 1 hour earlier opening, while those in tourist destinations were allowed slightly longer hours earlier. The decision has drawn sharp backlash. There is a significant, how does one put it? There is an alcohol problem in that state, with the per capita state consumption of alcohol being in the highest in the country. Will this decision have an impact, though, on the upcoming elections? That is the critical one. It's not so much the decision itself, but the timing of this decision coming as it does just weeks before the state goes to polls.
Whatever reason is behind for extending these 3 hours, it is very difficult to hear. The government has to rethink this decision and put it back.
There is no need for any controversy, I think, because if you look to other states, there may be this kind of practices, and many states much liberal timing is there, but Kerala, it is something strict.
Sebastian Paul is a leader of the Left Front, a former member of Parliament. I'll also be joined by Colonel Dini, spokesperson of the Kerala BJP. Mr. Paul, what is the rationale? What is the logic of this decision where people are trying to curb alcoholism as a problem? The left government is increasing the timings of bars. I mean, at 10 a.m. in the morning. Come on.
Now in Kerala, as you know, the nights are becoming longer in length. There are so many tourists are coming, so many international conferences are being held, not only in big cities like Kochi or Thiruvananthapuram, but even in remote areas like Idiki and Wayanad. where if we close the bar at 10 o'clock, it may cause inconvenience to some people. So 1 hour at the end and 1 hour at the beginning, 2 hours. The time is the day is lengthened. Always this.
Mr. Paul, tell
liquor
me,
issue-
there is a alcohol consumption issue in the state in as much as the per capita consumption of alcohol in Kerala is one of the highest in the country. You're adding to that problem. You're not taking away from that problem.
No, I am doubtful whether Kerala is leading in the number of beverages outlets or in the matter of consumption. Apart from that, our policy, the left government's policy, is not prohibition at all. They are trying to promote temperance. For that, it is a separate ministries also, but department itself is functioning.
Okay.
The project like Vimukti, all those things are there. But we cannot stop drinking or stop sale of liquor overnight. That is why, taking into so many realities, government has taken a decision. But whatever be the decision, it will always attract criticism, bad criticism. Because
Colonel Dini is also joining us. Colonel Dini, it's it's adults, they're grown-up people, they can decide whether they want to have a tipple. What's your problem? Why are you opposed to it?
Zaka, I think we all understand what are the ills of having too much of liquor anywhere, whether it's in your house or as a person or in the society. And as you rightly mentioned, that Kerala has a problem. I mean, let's face it, that you may try to hide it under the carpet, but Kerala has a problem as far as liquor goes, as far as drugs goes. All this is a social problem of Kerala. Now, I want to highlight the double standards of the CPM. In 2016, what did their manifesto say? Their manifesto said that we will gradually reduce the number of bars. Is it right or not?
Yeah.
They said that not a single new bar would be open. Is it right or not? They said that the age of the people having liquor would be raised, I think, to 23 or something. Did it happen? No. So what they said and what they're doing right now is totally different. The number of bars has increased from 29 in 2016 to 884 today as we speak. So this is what the LDF government has done over a period of time, and going by their own policy of reducing the intake, and they call it different name, abstinence or whatever. Now, second point, what is the timing of this particular decision, Zafar?
Yeah.
There is an election which is coming up in a few days' time. So it is clear that there's a deal being signed with the liquor lobby so that all the expenses during the elections are taken care of. But it's not rocket science to understand that at this point of time, and the entire process was finished in 2 days' time. January 29th, the excise minister puts up the file. 31st of January, the CM signs. So it happened so fast, which is remarkable by Kerala standards. And now we have to.
So, Mr. Paul, there are two things here. One, please answer the question that Colonel Dini was asking. That the LDF government has been in power for 10 years now. At the fag end of this term, just before elections are going to be called, you've made a decision such as this. And two, all those promises that you made 10 years ago, that's been thrown out the window. In fact, the previous government of Mr. Omanjandi was brought down for one of the big reasons was around this whole bar issue. And at that time, you were not saying that you will open bars from 10 a.m. to midnight or that you will increase the number of bars in the state.
But we were not endorsing the decision of the Omanjandi government to close all the bars in the state. 118 bars was closed during his tenure. But what happened? He lost the election. What happened to A.K. Antony? He prohibited the Arak sale in the state. He lost that election also. So there is no question of people supporting or negative at all.
So you are saying in Kerala the opposite happens. If you support alcohol, people support you. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So it is not practically possible to stop all these things overnight. That is why I said our policy is to promote temperance. The temperance movement is officially government-sponsored program is going on in the state. But here, what is very innocuous thing to extend the time of functioning of the bars for 2 hours, one at the beginning and one at the end.
What about the criticism that why did you wait for the fag end, just before the elections to announce this? You're doing this for political reasons. Colonel Dini says it's to get money from the excise lobby.
If the people are all against drinking or liquor. It will be reflected in the election also. So we are taking a great risk at the fag end of our term. We are supposed to giving relaxation, but that is not the problem. Maybe some people may got suspicious why these people are doing this at this time. But I say there is nothing connecting the election or campaign with this thing, because this was in this discussion and deliberation for quite a long time.
So, Colonel Dini, he's making a point. Other than a few church groups and some women's help groups and alcohol anonymous groups, there's no mass protest in Kerala because of this decision. In fact, if anything, people are actually welcoming this decision.
No,
yes, that is
let Colonel Dini answer. Yeah, please. Thank you.
See, Zaka, that is what is unfortunately the sad state of Kerala today. Now, about 10 to 20 years back, this particular incident would have been, or a decision would have been such a hue and cry. It would have been made such a big difference. But and why I say so is in 2016, Mr. Yechuri is on record. He said that no single bar which the previous government had closed, we will open it. He's on record saying that. So that's exactly what they have done. They have not only opened, they have gone much ahead of it. So what has happened is systematically our society in Kerala has degenerated to such an extent that today, as you rightly said, if such a decision comes, people are happy, or at least people who are drinking.
No, but Colonel, then you're basically saying the people are at fault. The society is degenerated. People are at fault. Therefore, if the government is making such a decision,
that's not the
and
point.
there is no major opposition, then it's the people's problem.
No, that's not the point. The point is when LDF government said 2016 that they will gradually reduce. See, nobody is asking for complete ban. It has to be reduced. Now, what they have done is they have done they have done the entire opposite of what they preached. So naturally, when there is a large quantity of liquor floating, and Mr. Sebastian Paul sir would be knowing that during Onam or Christmas we go for record sales of liquor. It happens during this festive season. So is it something which we should be proud of? The reason is that there is a system. There is a systematic failure of the government to curb this liquor tendency. They have to gradually bring it down. So, instead of doing that, they have
Dr. Paul was saying that he doubts if Kerala has one of the highest per capita consumptions of alcohol. It in fact has the highest per capita consumption of alcohol. In fact, the highest per capita expenditure on alcohol is 496 rupees. That's what an average Malayali spends. The point is
another angle to it. Why this which is happening? Why this kind of liquor policy is being followed? Because of our poor financial management. In Kerala state government is actually surviving on two major sources of income. One is the liquor and another is the lottery. So both are in a kind of exploiting the common man. And let's face it that the people who are actually drinking are the middle class and the lower middle class who are spending more than what they are supposed to do on liquor. The 5-star people and all those things will be taken care of. But the real issue lies with the people who are actually earning a daily living. That is what is being harmed, and that is where I hold the government accountable that they have not done enough to curb these tendencies, to reduce it gradually, so that the society improves.
We'll leave it at that. We'll leave it to the people of Kerala to decide. Dr. Paul seems to be very confident that the people will endorse this decision. But let's see. Elections will happen in a few weeks. Thank you very much to both Dr. Sebastian Paul and to Colonel Dini for joining us. The Middle East is once again on the brink. A massive US military buildup is underway. Trump calls it an armada, and that is raising fears that President Donald Trump could launch a strike against Iran within days. As diplomacy hangs by a thread, Washington is facing a defining choice. Should it continue with negotiations with Iran, or should it go for a direct confrontation? Is the region headed towards another imminent conflict? I decode. The rapid buildup of US forces in the Middle East has got to the point where this weekend. The White House is now left with a high-stakes choice about whether to continue pursuing diplomacy or going for war. And most indications are that Trump is likely to go ahead with a military strike. But at the same time, Trump has given no indication whatsoever that he's made up his mind on a decision about how to proceed. But the drive to assemble a military force which is capable of striking Iran's nuclear program, its ballistic missiles, and some of its terror proxies has continued unabated for the better part of the last month. This is despite the fact that indirect talks were held between America and Iran just this Tuesday. After those talks, Iran has sought 2 more weeks' time to come back with a fleshed-out proposal for a diplomatic resolution. Trump could be using these 2 weeks to press the military pressure on Iran. President Trump has repeatedly demanded that Iran give up its nuclear program, including agreeing not to enrich any more uranium. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, whose country would potentially take part in an attack on Iran, has been pushing for action to weaken Iran's ability to launch ballistic missiles, particularly missiles at Israel. He's also been a strong advocate of regime change in Iran. Israeli forces, which have been on heightened alert for the last few weeks, have been making more preparations for a possible war. And a meeting of Israel's security cabinet, which was scheduled to happen on Thursday, has now been moved to Sunday, likely to give the go-ahead for a joint American and Israeli operation against Iran. Now, many American administration officials have expressed skepticism about the prospects of reaching a diplomatic deal with Tehran. The indirect talks that happened on Tuesday in Geneva ended with what the Iranian foreign minister said was an agreement on a set of guiding principles. But American officials said that the two sides made some progress, but the gaps were huge.
Doing a deal with Iran is not easy. I said it yesterday, I'll repeat it again today. I mean, we have to understand that Iran ultimately is governed, and its decisions are governed by Shia clerics, radical Shia clerics, okay? These people make policy decisions on the basis of pure theology. That's how they make their decisions. So it's hard to do a deal with Iran.
Trump has repeatedly threatened that Iran must meet his terms or face severe consequences. But another attack just 8 months after a 12-day war in which Israel and the United States attacked Iran's top nuclear sites would potentially carry substantial risks. One of those risks is that Iran would respond with a ferocious barrage of missile strikes on Israel, as well as American forces that are stationed in the region. America has more than a dozen military bases across the Middle East, and those are all potentially targets for an Iranian counterstrike. For a president who ran for office promising to keep the United States out of wars, particularly foreign ones, Trump has now waged his 7th American military attack in another country in the last year since he's come back to office. This would also be, if he launches an attack on Iran, this would also be his 2nd attack on Iran since he came back last January. Last June, after striking Iran's 3 top nuclear sites, Trump had declared that Iran's nuclear program had been obliterated. But now, he is considering sending the US military back to Iran just to finish the job. But unlike the US-Israeli assault last June, President Trump's objectives this time around are much less clear. The US military buildup includes dozens of refueling tankers, which have been rushed to the region by the US Central Command of the CENTCOM. There have been also more than 50 additional fighter jets, 2 aircraft carrier strike groups, complete with destroyers, cruisers, and submarines. The aircraft carrier USS Gerald R. Ford, fresh from the Caribbean, where it was part of the naval fleet pressurizing the Venezuelan government, President Nicolas Maduro, was approaching Gibraltar earlier this week. It is the largest carrier strike group in the world, and it's making its way to join another aircraft carrier which is already in the region, the USS Abraham Lincoln.
The president has always been very clear, though, with respect to Iran or any country around the world. Diplomacy is always his first option, and Iran would be very wise to make a deal with President Trump and with this administration.
In Israel, the 2 defense officials said that significant preparations were underway for the possibility of a joint strike along with America, even though no decision has been made about whether or not to carry out such an attack. They said that the planning envisions delivering a severe blow over a number of days with the goal of forcing Iran into making more concessions at the negotiating table. In fact, so far, Iran has been unwilling to concede on the fundamental point, which is giving up its nuclear program. The US buildup suggests an array of possible Iranian targets, including short and medium-range missiles, missile storage depots, nuclear sites, and other military targets like the headquarters of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or the IRGC. It could even look at a possible taking out of the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, but that looks unlikely as of now. The ultimate decision on the scope of these targets, who to hit, what to hit, and how much, is largely up to President Trump. The American buildup also includes dozens of additional F-35s, F-22s, and F-16 fighter jets that have all been flown from various parts of the world, from the US to Europe, from the Middle East. They're all onward now to the Middle East, circling around the Persian Gulf. Dozens of refueling planes, which are vital for a prolonged air campaign, have also been moved forward to the Middle East. The second aircraft carrier, the Gerald Ford, and the largest in the world, and its 3 destroyer escorts could be in the Mediterranean by the weekend or possibly by early next week. The Ford is likely to be deployed initially near the coastline of Israel to try and defend Tel Aviv as well as other Israeli cities. But unlike last time, diplomacy may give America more time to get its military ready, but it also gives Iran more time to plan its retaliation. Last time, Iran struck back at the Al Udeid US military base in Qatar, but there were very minimal damages. This time, though, might be much more devastating. I want to go straight across to Paula Hancock of CNN, who's now joining us live. Paula, thank you for joining us. What is your assessment of this situation? So far, there's been no confirmation from Washington of whether President Trump has made up his mind for attack, or is this just a pressure-building tactic? What is the sense you're getting? Is an attack imminent, or is the sign that both sides are giving one of deterrence and not necessarily of attack?
Well, what we've been hearing from sources familiar with what is happening within the White House is that the US military will be ready to carry out military action by this weekend. Now, that just means that it will be physically ready, that all the assets will be in place that are needed to be in place. This, according to sources, not necessarily that it will happen this weekend. In fact, we understand from those speaking to CNN that the US President Donald Trump effectively hasn't made up his mind at this point. We understand that he is still polling advisors and allies as to whether or not a military strike is the way to go, saying that he has yet to make a decision. Now, we know that there was a meeting of the top national security officials in the Situation Room on Wednesday where this was discussed. We know that the US president as well was briefed by his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who have just been in Geneva having these discussions with Iranian officials earlier this week as to where exactly they believe these negotiations are. So at this point, we understand that militarily, the US will be ready by the weekend. We don't know politically if they will be.
Would you call this a sort of direct reaction by the American side to Iran conducting those live fire exercises along the Strait of Hormuz? That's perhaps one piece of leverage that Iran has. It can exert influence over the global oil markets. A good chunk of oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz. Do you see this playing out that way, that as America piles up the military firepower, and a lot has been piled up in the last few weeks, Iran's way of responding to it is to show that it can shut off this important waterway of commerce?
Well, what we've been seeing over recent months, what we've been seeing over recent weeks is this very significant military build-up by the United States. You have one aircraft carrier in place. You have another one on the way. That is a significant amount of firepower, both offensive and defensive, from the United States. Now, we have been hearing from the US Secretary of State, for example, Marco Rubio, saying that this is what is needed to be in place in case there is a military option that is taken and they need to be able to defend themselves, the US allies in the region, and the US assets and personnel in the region. So certainly what we have seen from Iran has just been over the past couple of days. We have seen those military drills in the Strait of Hormuz. We have seen military drills in the Gulf of Oman as well. So we can't say that that is in a reaction, certainly that the US buildup is a reaction to that, just because of the timeline. But what we do know is that this is a very busy, significant, economically crucial waterway that has been in jeopardy in the past and has had a very damaging economic impact globally. You have about a fifth of the world's oil that is being transported through this waterway. So the fact that Iran was carrying out these military drills there, the fact that that they have said that they are able to shut this waterway, the Strait of Hormuz, if they deem necessary, it is their way of having a show of force. It is their way of being able to say that they do have cards to play, that militarily that they are able to inflict damage, not just on the United States or on those in the region, but on the world, on the global economy.
Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, the younger brother of King Charles, was arrested on suspicion of misconduct while in public office in what is the most serious legal turn yet in the Epstein scandal that has shadowed him for years. The detention came on his 66th birthday, underscoring how far the former royal's public standing has fallen since his ties to the convicted American child sex offender Jeffrey Epstein came under scrutiny. Our Sanjay Suri is reporting from London with more on this story.
Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, King Charles's younger brother, has been arrested and is at present in police custody, facing questioning and investigation. Andrew, formerly Prince Andrew, was arrested at the Royal Sandringham Estate this morning in a police raid that was necessarily facilitated by the palace. The police could hardly have sneaked into King Charles's estate behind his back. King Charles later issued a statement that the law must take its own course. A police statement says that Andrew has been arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. That is a broad offence that could encompass misconduct of various kinds. But the focus of police investigation leading to this arrest is apparently allegations or suspicion, as the police put it, of misconduct while Andrew was Britain's trade envoy. That's a position he held from 2001 to 2011. Andrew has so far consistently denied wrongdoing, but the police are unlikely to have taken this dramatic step without reasonable confidence that they have a very firm case against Andrew. And no doubt Andrew's defense would be that he had shared information with the view to securing investment in British interests overall. But that would now have to be a defense that would have to stand the scrutiny of a very public trial. The case will be watched around the world in that public trial at some point. The only way out of that would be for the police to drop the case, and nobody quite sees that happening. Andrew would no doubt present a strong defense, and there are enough grounds on which he could seek potentially to interpret his actions to his own advantage. But at the moment, the former prince is in a prison cell, not where he would like to be on his 66th birthday.
Where Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was arrested hours ago on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Take a look at the scenes at two residences associated with the former UK prince. Police in unmarked cars outside the Sandringham estate in Norfolk and the Royal Lodge in Windsor. Andrew had just recently moved to Sandringham from Windsor after he was stripped of his titles over his ties to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Well, Andrew spent a decade as UK trade envoy. During that time, he allegedly passed confidential information to Epstein, according to documents released by the US Department of Justice. Mountbatten Windsor has previously denied any wrongdoing over his ties to the disgraced financier. Well, it is difficult to overstate just how impactful this news is to the British royal family. In a statement, King Charles III said, and I quote, "I have learned with the deepest concern the news about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and suspicion of misconduct in public office. What now follows is the full, fair and proper process by which this issue is investigated in the appropriate manner and by the appropriate authorities. In this, as I have said before, they have our full and wholehearted support and cooperation. CNN's Salma Abdulaziz following this breaking news story from London. And Salma, a royal source telling CNN that Buckingham Palace was not given prior warning of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's Thursday arrest. What more do we know about how that arrest unfolded?
We do have a bit of a timeline now that I do want to share with you. We understand, of course, today, Thursday morning at about 8 a.m. Local time, police vehicles, some of them unmarked, showed up at Sandringham Estate. This is, as you said, where former Prince Andrew was staying. He moved there only earlier this month after he was kicked out of the Royal Lodge in Windsor because of this growing scandal, because of this controversy by his brother, King Charles. Now, of course, we understand now that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was around 8 a.m. local time arrested by the police in a search of his property. He was staying there. A search of his property called the Wood Farm. It's actually, the estate is owned by King Charles, but of course his brother was staying there. That search began. There was also a search that began in Windsor at the Royal Lodge, where he had been staying previously. So we are quite literally talking about police searching the homes of members of the royal family.
As Tamil Nadu, one of India's most influential states in politics and culture, heads towards the assembly elections, politicians, policymakers, and top voices from business, culture, entertainment will come together for high-impact conversations around governance, development, culture, and issues shaping everyday life. Where leaders meet creators, policy meets popular voice, and perspectives collide. For News18 Network Town Hall to answer the questions that truly matter. News18 Network Town Hall, Chennai, 23rd February 2026 at 10 a.m. This is News18 Network. India's largest news network.
Across and shifting focus to French President Emmanuel Macron, who is here in India. He's giving out details over India and France's Rafale deal. Let's cut across.
Et c'est pour ça que tous les partis politiques qui, à un moment ou à un autre, justifient en leur sein ou à leur périphérie des mouvements qui pratiquent la violence sous prétexte que la République ne ferait pas assez ceci ou cela, commettent à chaque fois une faute grave. Grave. Et donc là, en l'espèce, c'est un mouvement d'action violente et mobilisé à sa tâche pour que les conditions du respect de chacun, de la sécurité soient assurées. Mais chacun a sa part de responsabilité.
Est-ce que vous avez aucune alliance avec LFI?
Ensuite, il y a de l'autre côté, à l'extrême droite, également des mouvements violents. Ces mouvements doivent être combattus, continuer d'être éradiqués, et rien ne saurait les justifier. Mais n'entrons pas dans un face-à-face. Et quant aux autres commentaires politiques que je vois, je suis toujours frappé de voir que les gens qui sont nationalistes, qui ne veulent pas qu'on les embête chez eux, sont toujours les premiers à commenter ce qui se passe chez les autres. Que chacun reste chez soi et les moutons seront bien gardés.
Ça, c'est pour Georges Meloni. Monsieur le Président, le prince Andrew a été arrêté à son domicile ce matin dans le cadre de l'affaire Epstein. Quel est votre commentaire?
Je ne vais pas faire plus de commentaires, évidemment, ça, j'imagine combien ça peut choquer le peuple britannique. Après, la justice passe, il y a une volonté qui est de laisser la justice travailler, de transparence, et donc je n'ai pas de commentaires à faire qui puissent expliquer. Mais en prenant tous ces responsabilités, je le dis, là, c'est un moment de responsabilité pour toutes les formations politiques. Quiconque veut défendre ses idées, aller aux urnes, convaincre, n'a pas le droit d'utiliser la violence. Quiconque veut défendre ses idées, quels que soient ses idéaux, et je peux être en accord, en désaccord, vous pouvez être en accord, en désaccord, ils sont à respecter. Rien ne justifie la violence. Et donc, quelques responsables politiques, quelques partis politiques qui est ambigu avec des mouvements violents, qui est ambigu avec des groupes qui pratiquent la violence, portent une responsabilité gravissime. Et donc, je les appelle tous à la responsabilité, à lever ces ambiguïtés, à interdire eux-mêmes tous les groupes qui, en leur sein, pratiquent cette violence, à les fermer. La justice, de toute façon, fera son travail. L'administration le fera pour les dissolutions. Et je les appelle tous à ramener les esprits à la fois à la décence et au calme. La décence, parce qu'un jeune homme vient de mourir. Et la décence, c'est d'abord d'être aux côtés de sa famille, de ses proches, et de dire qu'il n'y a rien qui justifie de tuer un jeune homme. Et les opinions ne justifient pas de tuer un jeune homme. On peut, encore une fois, les partager, ne pas les partager. Et ensuite, je ne crois pas à l'émeute permanente. La République, ça n'est pas ça.